Hey everybody, what is up? Welcome to EduMatch Tweet and Talk number 13. Please follow along with us on Google Plus on our Hangout on Air at bit.ly/tweet talk 13, as well as on Twitter with the hashtag EduMatch. Speaking of EduMatch, check us out at edumatch.education if you want to sign up and be our featured person of the day. We'll tweet out all this great info about you all day long for a 24-hour period. We would love to have you. So tonight's topic is going to be overcoming roadblocks, and this was proposed by our fantastic moderator, Shana White. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it on over to you.
Good evening. Hopefully everybody's doing well. I'll start off with letting everybody introduce themselves, and then we'll kind of dive into the topic. So we'll start with Carla. Tell us where you're from and what you do, and then we'll go down the line.
Good evening, everybody. I am Carla Jefferson. I am in South Carolina, and I am a instructional technology coordinator.
Awesome. Welcome, Carla. Dean, you're next.
Hi, Dean Dahl. I'm a 6th grade teacher in Edina, Minnesota.
Great. Glad you joined us. Dorian.
Oops, sorry about that. Hi, I'm Dorian Roberts. I'm here from Detroit, Michigan. I teach 5th grade, and I'm an aspiring administrator.
Great. Glad to have you. Melissa.
All right. I am joined by my son. I am Melissa Eddington. I teach English as a second language in Columbus, Ohio. This year I'm at a middle school and 2 elementary schools.
Great. Sarah, you can introduce yourself, even though you're the brains of this operation.
All right. Hey, everybody. My name is Sarah Thomas, and I am a high school technology education teacher from the D.C. area.
All right. And Tammy.
Hi, everybody. My name is Tammy Neil. I teach tech and game design at a rural school in North Florida.
Awesome. And I'm Shana White. I'm an instructional, I guess, a technology coordinator in Atlanta. I wanted to kind of make this more free-flowing. Normally I have questions because I'm very organized and kind of in the box, but I want to make it a little bit more wide open today. So there's tons of roadblocks that I think that educators feel. I think newbie educators, veteran educators, people in leadership. Just want to kind of go down the line. What would be probably the biggest roadblock you think you've faced so far in your educational career? I'll start with Carla and work my way down.
Yeah, I would be first on that one. I think for me, I guess it would be the pressures that teachers face because of standardized testing. I mean, I think that would be the largest roadblock that teachers face or educators face in general. Just because the people who make the decisions aren't educators. And in any other professional field, the people who make the decisions actually do those things. And so I feel like teachers feel like in a lot of ways they're not valued for what they do, and they feel pressured to have children perform in ways that are unrealistic.
Yeah, I think a lot of teachers feel that roadblock of being dictated to by people who have not been in a classroom, and I would even throw administrators sometimes in that boat. You have administrators that are dictating to them evaluation policies, and the administrator hasn't been in a classroom 10 plus years. So I definitely think that's a huge roadblock. Dean, what would you say is a big roadblock maybe you faced or you think educators are facing today?
Well, I definitely agree with Carla on on that topic. My new obstacle is interesting, and I've talked to, as I network with teachers, the big push to move into technology, and whether it's iPad, iOS, or Chromebooks, or what have you, and everyone gives it a try. And now that that newness has worn off, I find that people are moving and gravitating either backwards or not, kind of getting stuck as to what technology or if it's going to go away. Or my theory is that there's so many different levels of awareness and knowledge that some people feel like I don't want to be singled out by not keeping up with the person, or like Sarah. I mean, she's just cutting and going like crazy, and it's like, where do I fit into that? So I get both sides of it, but it's a weird obstacle right now.
Yeah, I think that's kind of like a hard roadblock to tackle because everybody has their own mind frame and mindset. Then you have fear from some of the teachers that you're dealing with, so that's kind of a roadblock. Then you have those teachers that I call kind of the sailboats. They're the high flyers that want to keep going and do something new. And you have that group that's in the middle. They can go one way or the other. They can go back and revert to old habits and say, you know what, this technology train I'm getting off of, or they can kind of go with the sailboat. So I completely agree with that, Dean. Dorian, what would you say as a teacher, maybe some roadblocks that maybe some of your students maybe face in the classroom that you've seen?
I would probably have to go right now with the technology. Our state has adopted the Common Core and made it into their own, where it's now the M-step, so to speak. And just the assumption that all kids know how to work cell phones, kids are on cell phones all the time, therefore they know how to, all the intricacies of doing, taking an assessment on a computer. And I think that is a disadvantage because as we keep piling more onto the responsibilities of teachers and students, we keep taking away the resources to help them become successful.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing because a lot of kids, even in my school, and we're not as big as maybe a Texas school or schools in New York, but we have kids coming in that have not even been exposed to technology, and I'm in a middle school. They don't even know how to pull up something as basic as a PowerPoint or Word document, or their big thing to go find research items is just to go to Google and type the word in and kind of hope for the best. So I completely agree with that. Melissa, what about the naysayers? I'm thinking with you being here in the Google Plus community and at this tweet and talk that you're probably one of the high flyers in your building. How do you deal with maybe the naysayers in your building or maybe in your district when they're kind of shooting down your ideas or kind of your ideal goals for technology or just your students?
Oh, goodness. How much time do we have? No. I think, I tend not to like the word no a lot. And I will ask questions to try to get to maybe what I think is what is best for my kids or for the teachers. I started the Twitter chat for my school district, and it's been a struggle to try to get and keep people coming back. And I will talk about Twitter, I will talk about Voxer and all of these different social media outlets that I'm on, and I sometimes get eyes rolled and I'm like, no, but so I'm trying to find different avenues to get my message across, and not to be, well, if you're not this, then you must be that, or the negative things. But I kind of wanted to go back to what you were asking, Dorian. The biggest obstacle for my students is, if you can believe it, they don't speak English when they walk into the doors of a U.S. school, fresh from Japan or China. And my obstacle for them is to try to educate the teachers on how to best assess them, what is it that they need to know, what is the other stuff that you can cut out to meet their needs in smaller doses, so they can be successful and not feel defeated all the time. So I know I kind of answered two things there, but.
Oh, no, it's all good. I think that a lot of teachers struggle with that. The ability to take kids where they are and meet their needs where they are, rather than putting them in boxes if they're an ESOL kid or if they're a special ed kid or if they're a minority kid or whatever the case may be. I think teachers, even though we seem to be huge advocates for the kids. Sometimes we can be the worst as far as putting kids in boxes and only serving them in whatever box they are in, instead of saying, hey, you know what, I've got to get outside this box to meet this kid's need, because they're coming in, like you said, not knowing English, or maybe they're coming from a disadvantaged socioeconomic background, whatever the case may be. I think sometimes as teachers we lose that in the mix because of Common Core, standardized testing, all those kind of like hierarchy items, that the kids kind of get lost in the shuffle. Tammy, with you being, I know you're one of the leaders of the Rural Ed Talk, what do you think are some roadblocks from being maybe from not a suburban or urban environment and coming more from a rural environment teaching-wise that you guys have to face?
I think some of the roadblocks are that we don't always, we're not, how shall I put this? Rural schools are often looked at as a place for blue collar to happen. That's where your farmers come from. That's where your factory workers, they come more from rural areas, and that's not always the case. So it's often hard for us to overcome that stereotype that, oh, y'all from the country. And I can tell you, some of the most intelligent people I've ever met are sitting in my classes right now, and I cannot wait to see where they're headed.
Yes, once again, that putting people in a box based on our preconceived notions is huge. Now I guess to kind of spin it and talk about it on a positive level, I know I talked about this with my Boxer group where I gave them what I deal with when there's a roadblock or something that causes me frustration. I try to find a way to encourage other people to take my thoughts off of the negative roadblock or the frustration that I'm facing. What are some things that you guys have done? And I'll start with you, Sarah, since I haven't come to you yet. What are some things that you guys have done to kind of overcome these roadblocks, or maybe roll around the side of them, or demolish them if you've had to?
That is a great question. I love that question because a lot of times we might focus on the obstacles that are in our way. But I was just reflecting on this and blogging on this a little earlier today, and one of the things that really came to mind is that if we are trying to be superheroes to these kids, superheroes don't make excuses. If there's a boulder in the way for Superman or Wonder Woman or whatever, they will like karate chop it, high five it, demolish it, or fly around it. So the very first step is to just not give up and definitely keep our eyes on the prize. So that would be like my main takeaway, as well as reaching out for that support. So that's part of it. So while keeping our eyes on the prize, we need to talk to each other. We need to connect. We need to turn to our PLNs. We need to educate ourselves on the topic. Be in Twitter chats. Do reading on the topic, and just get that information that we can to shoot down those boulders and blow them up.
Awesome. Blow them up. I like that. I'm all about action. Carla, what about in your role? Because you're in South Carolina, but you're kind of big on the hierarchy as far as like in your district. How have you kind of tried to overcome roadblocks? I know like you're really good at going back into your schools and being still with that one-on-one connection with your kids, but what are some ways that maybe you've overcome some roadblocks in your role that you're in now?
I think a lot of it is just to remain positive and to find, I always say, we laugh in our office, if I have pleased one person today, I'm happy. But I think it's about like I'm at the point where I'm like building relationships. So it's finding positive ways to interact with teachers who sometimes have negative views. So I think just showing my face, being in schools, being with students, offering my support.
All right, I guess Carla, I don't know what happened. I'll just continue. I think that those are awesome ideas. I think I mentioned this to my PLN. Sometimes people, when they're negative, they're looking just for an audience. And if you don't necessarily feed into that audience of negativity, then they have no one to listen. And they're looking for somebody to go, and complain, and I don't like this, and I don't like that. And if you don't give that an audience, I think that helps. And a lot of times they're being negative because they're afraid. I think deep down, a lot of times people are negative or they're naysayers about anybody that's trying to be a high flyer or do the right thing. They're naysayers because they're afraid. What Dorian and Melissa, I'll go back to you guys. What about like with your students? How have you maybe seen some of your students overcome roadblocks, or maybe how have you assisted some of your students to overcome roadblocks that they've faced?
I'll jump in first. I think really just giving them tools and reminding them to bring their electronic dictionaries to school really helps. I use my paper dictionary and they'll use their electronic dictionary, but really just using tools that they have around them to access the learning, I guess. And really it's a lot of modeling for them and showing them what they need to do as opposed to just telling them. I find that it works really well if you actually show them instead of continue to talk in a language that they're not understanding. So those are some things that I've done.
Dorian, what about you?
For myself, I know I'm going to probably get into trouble about it, but there's no turning back now. I go back to the basics. I help my students go back to learning how to organize themselves, learning study skills. I really try to program my students to set themselves up for success. When I see a particular person go down that hallway, I open up my classroom door, and when I see them leave, I close my classroom door, and I'm like, these are the things that I need to cover with you guys to take you to the next level. I feel that sometimes we can really get into a rut of being dissatisfied, but I have to take the high road and choose what's best for the kids. And the kids my students see it, and they appreciate it, and they're like, because you taught us how to do this, we can now do this. And I don't have to backtrack as much, and I don't get that lack of retention, and I get them being more creative because I started with the basics. I think that sometimes we get really caught up in trying to stay on pacing that we forget about the elements. And that's what I really try to offer my students every step of the way. And after 15 years, they definitely appreciate it.
And that's huge. I think those little nuances and pieces are almost teaching them how to advocate for themselves, to put themselves in a position where they're their own advocator. They're going to give themselves in a position of power. And when you are in that position of power, you're a lot easier able to overcome roadblocks. Dean, did you have anything else to add about maybe how you've overcome roadblocks or maybe some of your students overcoming roadblocks?
I tap into the students seem to have sometimes a better grounded view of these roadblocks, or at least what we see in the classroom together. And even if they don't have the answer to it, it's cool to I don't know, share the learning with them, and it helps the roadblocks, at least the behavior aspects of it, and also you can bring it back to your team or your curriculum group with what motivates the students.
Awesome. So far, you guys have been awesome. This panel is very wise, and hopefully everybody at least got some takeaway from what was being said. So I'm going to kick it back to Sarah, and she'll close us out.
All right, so I wanted to thank all of you tonight for such an amazing conversation. Thank you again to Shana for having all these great questions and facilitating this great discussion. Thank you to everyone also who was following along on the Twitter hashtag. Saw a lot of great conversation happening in that space as well. So this Twitter chat will be storified, and the Google Hangout on air, we're going to strip out the video and just post it on the iTunes store. So it'll be available there as well. If you'd like to subscribe, then go to bit.ly/EduMatchPodcast. So check us out next week. Next week we're going to be debating a controversial topic. Should we pay or should we not pay for resources that we use in our classroom? So we're going to be looking at both sides, and of course we'd like to extend an invitation to anyone who's on the panel with us right now, or to anyone who's watching us, or to anyone who has that interest. Just sign up at bit.ly/tweettalk 14. So that's going to be the 14th episode, Sunday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Anyone can be a panelist. Just leave a comment or on the Google Hangout page. And last but not least, just wanted to throw an opportunity out there. If you ever have a big educational idea, if you're wondering what would happen if so-and-so did X, Y, and Z, or if you're already working on that yourself, then please, we are crowdsourcing a video for something going on at Michigan State University on November 7th. So check that out, bit.ly/bigeduideas. So we'd love to hear your different ideas and maybe get you some support on those ideas. So thank you again to everyone, and have a fantastic week.